COE. Now with more engineering work under our belt, it was a solid plan. It hasn't worked. So the second book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, is perhaps my favorite business book. It's a no-nonsense book from a successful entrepreneur and one of the co-founders of Anderson Horowitz, the well-known venture capital firm. But like many successful entrepreneurs, Ben was only super successful once he was. He made a ton of mistakes along the way because, well, hard things are hard. True. I know that sounds flippant, but it isn't. And as for the difference between knowledge and experience, you can only understand what it's like to be a CEO and how hard it is once you've experienced it. True. So sure, there are plenty of books on how to hire the right people, how to raise venture capital, how to negotiate, but those aren't the hard things. Well, how easy were they then? Because you didn't do any of those. You didn't raise any money. There was no VC. There was no deals to get Chronicles of Valeria in the hands of the people. It never happened. So a hard thing is when you've hired your best friend to do your company's UI, UX, and web design, only to outgrow their skills 2 years later and need to fire them. That's hard. It's really not. I think pretty much the easiest and most common sense advice most people give you in life is never work with people that you have personal relationships with, especially if you're the boss, because it just never ends well. You can't be a boss if somebody's your friend. There are a few books written about how to fire your best friend. Just do it. Just do it. Another hard thing is when, regardless of your efforts, you're unable to find a good engineer willing to join the company, and now must make the decision to either pivot and push forward as best as you can, or fire your content creators, skilled creators you'll ultimately need in the long term to reduce costs in the short term. I just don't understand how, in the area that they're in, where they open their office, is the really expensive part of Washington, where I think the Valve studio is like across the street or something. So if you can find a competent, good engineer in that area, I don't know what you've done wrong. I don't know why nobody's joined you, but that seems like a you problem in your studio and something you were doing. So a hard thing is hiring someone from within your community, someone well-known and respected, only to discover they lack the full set of skills you need and are prone to making critical errors. Also not hard. Don't hire people from the community and think they're bad. Hire them. But if you do fire them, there's a possibility they can become toxic and do harm to the communication within the community. Not your problem. They should be signed something when they're wrong. In which case you have legal recourse if they believe things. It is what it is. So they don't write books about those things because they're hard. They don't seem that difficult in my eyes, but what do I know? They're nuanced, and generally speaking, there's no right or wrong answer. One of my favourite passages in Ben's book is the idea that if you've done your job well and hired smart people, then your leadership team is capable of handling the day-to-day problems of the organisation. Whether that's people problems, production problems, influencer problems, customer service problems, etc. They can deal with it. The smart one will handle the leadership team. The fewer problems land on their desk, because well, they can handle. But the caveat is that the smarter your leadership team, the more chance of problems are that do land on your desk. When a problem lands on your desk, it's no longer a question of the good versus bad option. It's a choice between the bad versus cataclysmic. So what's the takeaway from 2020? Well, there's a few. He didn't talk in this at all about when they wasted hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of dollars with Spatial OS, and then just decided to drop it and essentially need to start from scratch on a whole bunch of stuff, networking and backend. Number one, backend, some things gone. Knowing the differences often most difficult part, but when bad things happen, look at them as opportunities to find a new path forward. What's the way to come to work? Number two, no matter how positive your intent is, you can't always have the reactions to this. This one was, again, while I completely condemn people doing the extra stuff, people being upset that they trusted you, gave you money, but supported you the whole time, paid your rent, your mortgage, whatever it is, and put food on your family's table, and you didn't show them any of the respect in return, and have shown them no transparency since then, you can then not be upset when people turn around. I do think, again, this is you can't explain it, and you are also part of the problem perpetuating this by not doing anything that you said and being transparent and giving people no reason to doubt it. I don't think people anywhere near as much as people said, please, we've got money, something immediately. repeatedly, yeah, it's hard to have sympathy in that scenario. So the only reasonable course of action is to be authentic and hope to help people understand. I don't see any authenticity with this. So the more consistent your character, the more likely they are to understand your motivations. And more importantly, if trust is ever broken, you need more engagement, not less. Which again you didn't do. If possible, the last thing you want to do is retreat even out of fear. Number 3, understand your motivations, understand your why, and stay true to it. Whenever you go to the desk, ask yourself which most directly contribute. In my case, it was the delete the Discord, delete the forums, stop replying to people on Twitter, shut off the comment section on YouTube. So running a business is hard, like really hard, slowing the top, and if you've done the job right, you're still regularly supposed to put time into a freelancer. You'll make the best decisions, and sometimes you'll be right, sometimes you'll be wrong, no more fears. By the end of 2020, our results are filled with careers and unicorn. It was always intended to be a replayable, Unity or Reddit experience based on the Holdings mechanics to the top-down UX. But now we need to be a standalone product if we were going to get back to it. The problem was, I was still terrified of everything. So I was going to my mail and email back to my friend on the line and reading comments about me, the electricity and going to bed every night, being sued, running out of funds, and having to buy more stuff. At this point, we were told that there was no staff, and then later on, we talked about there being and nice people, and I don't think there was anybody else, but I don't remember, don't quote me on that one. It was a while. So I spent virtually every waking minute of every day thinking about something like that. I'm not going to do it. And then it all changed in one night to improve, even though our finances were dwindling rapidly. We had only enough money to finish the development of the current scope of the theory. Someone had filed a class action lawsuit against studios. We won't go into details of the lawsuit, but I will confess it's we received a pre-litigation demand letter from money that we used that they want money or else. But I said this when I saw this letter in video, and I went through it all on video. I think you'll be able to find the video and me talking about it at the time. It made no sense to me that their demand was refund everybody's money, because again, with what money? I agree with Caspian's take on this one. I never thought I'd say that. It's not like we've made 8 million in the previous 30 years. Even a rough per year, making an average of $100,000 a year in costs, meant there was no money to refund. This is exactly what I did. Again, a couple months before Chronicle were even announced they had financial problems. It was super obvious from the outside, so I'd imagine a lawyer would know this. There's 8 million in and 8 million out. We responded accordingly. I let the sender know that we were continuing with the development. There was no fraud on the presentation. We had no money to refund everyone. I was working without income, and that an independent firm had conducted a forensic accounting of their bank's expenditure about everything to the order. He said he was going to release this. Never happened. Hasn't happened today. So we only have his word on this one. I was asked to negotiate with plaintiff, but our response letter letting them know refunds were not an option was met with silence until the lawsuit. But I digress. The point is that in early 2021, I resolved to push forward with KOE, while still living in fear over everything that happened and then the worst thing imaginable to me, aside from something health related, finally happened. I once again found it hard to move forward, so I returned to my reading in 2021. 3 of the better books I read were... I'm not going to go through the book stuff anymore, because I want to finish this video within an hour. We're currently at half an hour mark, and we're halfway through this, so I'm not going to read the book stuff. So here we go. He was there now, at the end of 2021, things were moving along rapidly, between a handful of us. Soulbound Studios was being sued, but I was resolved. I knew what I needed to do, and why. And strangely, with a narrowing the focus, as a reminder of how small life presents things and how life sometimes sucks, around me forward, I was suddenly no longer afraid. So what would my key takeaways in 2021? One, we would do many things to mediocrity. There are few things more liberating in life than having a life. And number 3, getting sued sucks. Like a finite game, infinite games have no steadfast rules. The players can come and go from the game as they like. I won't lie, the concept reminded me much of a Meow. Okay. A multiplayer evolving online world like Chronicles of Valeria, but parallels between MMOs like CoE and an infinite game side with no win condition. The focus of any company planning to survive past its owner needs to focus on its why. Try and fail, preferably as quickly as possible. More book stuff. So he wanted to put an environment where people could have fun, chill, be friendly with that character, and then move the free play to dance and do the skills rather than when we finally reach on Discord server, I will be more intentional about the approach I like to adopt in the community. I care about the community itself, well-being, security, to impact safety. And if you aren't defined by your culture on purpose, be defined by your culture. There's actually some banging quotes that seem to come from hardcore philosophy. So at this point, you may be asking yourself why this is that there's no more failures, and so here it is. By the time we reach this point in 2022, I've read dozens of books, some by CEOs, some by consultants, some by historians, etc. And no matter the source, one thing consistently stood out: failure. It was basic. This makes sense because business and life in general is an infinite game, and it's a continuous process of failure, learning. It occurred to me that we are encouraged to take chances and fail when we're young. We weren't born with balance, we fail, we stand up, and we fall again. But the process builds strength, and eventually we have what's necessary to stay upright. And there's a similar analogy for riding a bike and every other skill we develop before entering grade school. Unfortunately, around the time we enter schooling and begin receiving letter grades, a pretty nasty thing happens. We stop being failures as skill building opportunities, and start being those true failures. Suddenly, it's like we expect people to be born knowing how to be effective communicators, inspiring leaders, or shrewd negotiators. We start grading people on how quickly they develop, whether their path is shorter or longer than someone else. We also forget that life is a journey, everyone's road is their own.
That was fun.
And that there is no such thing as failure on continued attempts at success. This continues into adulthood with something or someone being labelled a failure if it isn't successful the first time. Even knowing the chance of success the first time we try is often immeasurably small.
Cool.
I mean,
I like how you did that. That's really
wrong,
fun.
but at the same time, it's
yeah, please don't do that.
It's easy
Jesus
to obviously
Christ.
see through the veil here when it's somebody explaining that they took $8 million from people, and he's saying this is like, oh, you know, I should have been given more chances. I should have been forgiven. People should have understood that I was going to fail. But at the same time, that does nothing for the fact that you did and took people's money and then haven't been held accountable in any way. And again, I don't think the guy should be in jail or something, because I don't think it was malicious. But at the same time, again, compared to what I was talking about earlier, with if I was operating a business and you know, was crowdfunded completely, I'd want to be showing people the ongoings, right? I think that would be reasonable. It's your money at the end of the day. It's not his. It was just his turn, to use a great meme there. So throughout the rest of 2022, I made a point to remove the words fail, failed, or failure from his vocabulary, and instead set out to obtain anecdotes, adages, or other quotes that I could give to people whenever they use the word to help them understand why it's bad. Here are some of my favourites. I'm not going to read the quotes, not going to do it. So all that said, the main takeaway for 2022 was, and this is likely getting close to another quote, any situation has precisely two outcomes: success and learning. Failure isn't an outcome. A failure is the condition in which you are unable or unwilling to accept one of the previous two outcomes. I don't use the word failed or failure anymore. Instead, I try to understand why the outcome is what it is, learn from it, and continue. And I encourage others around me to do the same. I think... Oh my god, there's two...
Hi guys, I love you.
There's two more sections, and this one is called No More Fucks. At long last, we get to 2023, and this year was the most liberating of all. In January, I took my family to a local used bookstore where they had one of those deals where if you buy a specific number of books, you get a stupid number of used books for free. This is awesome. It was like buy 10, get 20 free. After collecting as many books as possible, we still had a few more books left over, so I picked up a physical copy of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. Good book. Contrary to the title, the book isn't about not caring. It is, but in a very nuanced way. It's about everything from accepting yourself as you are, to prioritizing what's important in your life, to picking your battles and pursuing worthwhile things despite the obstacles you may face. It's about giving fewer fucks to the things that aren't important and more fucks to the things that are, and not letting things hold you down, because who gives a fuck? The book
Happens
strongly
here.
argues that life is filled with negative experiences, and fulfillment comes from surmounting those negative experiences. Put differently, if you stop giving a fuck about the trials and tribulations required to achieve your goals, you become unstoppable. You are the juggernaut. Naturally, this resonated with my learnings from previous years and acted as a capstone to it all. I resolved to make 2023 the year I wouldn't give a fuck. It's just funny because obviously the guy's being sued, everyone in his community hates him, turned against him, there's been no game released, and he's just like, don't give a fuck.
Great. It's gonna crash my old computer again, I think.
But in a way,
come on, man. Control Alt Delete.
Right.
Come on, man.
I would be my authentic self, use my voice, and focus on
Alt
what's
F4.
more important to me.
Alt F4.
Now, and this isn't an exaggeration,
Alt F4.
I've gotten into the habit of taking in every perceived negative experience and asking myself,
come on, man. Alt Tab, Alt Tab. Oh my god. Come on, man.
We have a limited amount of
Crashed my computer again. Exoprimal. I might uninstall it, guys. I'm sorry. It's crashed my computer twice today. I'm not gonna play this game anymore. Every time I like, it's got some weird, terrible display adapter issue.